Everyone's experience is different, and I am simply here to share mine. If you would like to share your own experience of being Asian American, please, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. You can also find me on Twitter or Instagram. I think it's really important to reach out and share each other's stories, and I'm really excited to share mine. I got this video tag from YouTuber Jen Im. She is Korean American. I've linked her video down below so you could check this out after watching mine. Let's just get into it. I am Filipino American. Let me just look this up real quick. Number one result on Google, first generation are Filipinos who were born in the Philippines and have migrated to the United States. Second generation Filipino Americans are born in America. So by that definition, I am second generation. In 1973, my mom immigrated from Manila, Philippines to Natchez, Mississippi to work in a nursing program. So she came here on a work visa. Then in 1974, my mom moved to Chicago to reunite with her older sister, my awesome aunt, who was already settled in. So my mom was just loving working in Chicago until she got a broken heart. She was dating someone for a while, and then they broke up, and then my mom came home to the Philippines to surround herself with family and just kind of heal from that. And that's where she met my dad. The whole courting to getting married thing was such a crazy quick whirlwind because they were married within months after meeting each other. It was definitely a love at first sight thing. They got married in June 1981. But guess what? My mom had a job and a life in Chicago, so shortly thereafter, she had to go back home. She wasn't going on a honeymoon, she was going back home to Chicago to work and not lose her work visa. And then she worked on getting my dad over to Chicago via a spouse visa. My mom would come home to the Philippines and visit my dad whenever she could. In 1983, in June, that's when I was born. But my dad was now working in Saudi Arabia. Let me give you some political background on what was going on in the Philippines at this time. You can look up the history of the Philippines, of what was going on. I'll just give you a really quick overview. There was a lot of chaos with the Marcos regime at that time. I'm calling it a regime because that's what it was. A lot of people who had the opportunity were just looking to get out of there. So my dad took the opportunity to go work in Saudi Arabia just so he can get out of there. So over the next 3 years, my parents were keeping in touch via mail and phone, and my mom said that the phone bill would go up to $500. $500 in the 80s? I mean, that's like crazy now. Can someone figure out the inflation on that? Like, that is true love. Finally, my mom became a US citizen and she was able to petition my dad to come over, and that's exactly what happened. So my dad finally came over to the US, Chicago, Illinois, in 1986. I was born in the southwest side of Chicago. Market Park, where you at? And then the neighborhood was turning. There was more gang presence, violence happening. My parents found it necessary to move me and my brother outside of Chicago and into suburbia. That's where we ended up, in the southwest suburbs. The first time I felt different was pretty young. I loved Chicago. My neighborhood was so diverse. That's where I saw that people were just people, and that people could look different. They could have light skin and dark skin and medium skin and everything in between, and I never felt weird about that. But it did happen when our class was rehearsing for religious ceremony of some sort. I went to a Catholic grade school. A bunch of us kids were standing around. A couple of these kids were saying stuff like, yeah, look at this girl, she's like Chinese, look at her like Chinese eyes. And I was like, what is going on right now? In that moment is where I felt really different. There were other Asian kids in my class, so that was just really weird that they were picking on me for that. So yes, that was my first instance of feeling like, oh, I guess I am different, but so are you. You know what I mean? So I think I have some perspective now looking at that. Like, now I just see, okay, you kids are just being dumb. Yeah. Yeah, they're, both. I'm proud now. Growing up Filipino American, the move from a really diverse neighborhood. In Chicago, I loved my neighborhood. I loved my school. My friends were all kinds of ethnicities. I really felt like it was this little United Nations of people. And then when my parents moved me and my brother from there to the southwest suburbs in 1992, I was the only person of color in my school. And I think that really did a number on my personality, because I never considered myself super shy until I moved to the suburbs. Imagine being not only the new girl, but also the only girl of color in an otherwise very homogeneous environment. That was a really difficult time. Like, I left my really good friends, and I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood. I didn't know anybody in my class, and people just acted different. It was like being thrown in the deep end of an icy cold pool. I didn't know what to do in this new environment, so I just stayed quiet. I made friends, but I used that opportunity to just envelop myself in studies, in reading, in watching TV, because my parents were also very protective. I think it was kind of the effect of coming from a bad neighborhood. They really wanted to make sure that they had eyes on us at all times. So for a time, I just kind of put away that side of me, which was really difficult because, like, when you see my face, like, you can't hide who you are. There wasn't any real effort to, like, take me in either. The new girl, okay, cool, you're over there. All right, welcome to our class, and we'll stay over here. I rejected it, yeah, I'll have to admit. It's hard for me to say out loud, but yes, I did actively, from grade school up until my sophomore year of high school, I just didn't make any references to being Filipino. That's always fun. Stereotypes are fun. Thankfully, I'm in a place now, there's more awareness of being inclusive and encouragement of diversity. I've been watching a couple of these tag videos, and some of the things that have come up that I agree with are the model Asian stereotype. You know it, being studious and being super smart. Luckily, because I didn't have any friends, I stayed inside and studied all day and night. So that seriously though, yeah, there was some frustration. That was a struggle for me. I had to work 3 times as hard to be in honors classes, and I was, because of that pressure. I've definitely had some bullying moments. So in my own neighborhood, I have a home with my husband and my dogs. Your standard suburban living. I was walking outside one day, and then there was a car that drove by with a bunch of dumb kids inside, and then they started yelling stereotypical, really derogatory ching-chong sounds out of their car. I feel weird even just saying that. It's so disrespectful. I was the only one outside, and they were definitely aiming that at me, and I didn't know what to say. Like, and then I started just hating my neighborhood after that, and hating everyone after that, and that was just one instance of bullying. I can't imagine people who deal with that on a regular basis and how they feel about themselves and other people and their environments. I remember telling my husband, like, you know, this neighborhood sucks. Like, we gotta move out of here. There's no diversity. It's definitely getting better out here in suburbia. I am feeling better about it. If this is a stereotype, the fetishization, saying like, oh yeah, Filipinos are beautiful. Both the smart stereotype and the beautiful stereotype, they're like nice stereotypes, but you know what? They're still stereotypes. Like, nobody wants to be put into this big group to just be lumped together. That's always just awkward, you know? And then it becomes like about that person's weird fetishes and hang-ups, and then it's like not even about you as an individual anymore. Suddenly you're faced with like some person's weirdness. I was always weirded out by the what are you question. What are you? Human? And I've heard the argument, well, they're just being curious about you. They just want to know more about you and expand their own horizons. And yeah, but then again, that's about them. And you're not considering the feelings of the person that you're othering. That's what I have a problem with, the othering. Would you be asking me that if I was Caucasian? Probably not. Oh my gosh, there was this one time at a bar. My husband and I were just sitting outside, minding our own business. There was another couple sitting at another table. One of them, the guy comes over and he's like, I'm sorry, I just gotta know. If you're Asian American, you know when you're gonna get the question. Like your spidey sense tingles, and then you're like running through all the different kinds of answers that you could have at that time, depending on your mood. I was in a very chill mood at this time. I gotta know, where are you from? I know what that question means, because then I'm gonna say, I'm from Chicago, and then he's gonna say, no, where are you really from? And then I have to be like, my parents are from the Philippines, and then, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad it's okay for me to be here now. I'm sure he means well, and he just wants to connect, but at the same time, I don't appreciate the othering. Oh, you're not from here, are you? And then it's just frustrating because, hell yeah, I'm from here. I was born here, I was raised here, but I understand. That's like the struggle that Asian Americans struggle with. And I don't even want to say struggle, it's a very strong word. It's just like an internal, it's a questioning. It's a questioning. If you're watching this and you've asked someone that question, it's okay, don't feel bad, just know that, you know, we might not be cool with that. Maybe, you know, there's some people who are cool with that. If I'm just kind of navigating my own life, going about my business, kind of one of the last things I want to hear is like, hey, you're different, what are you? Like, I don't really owe you that answer. Comment down below if you have experience with that either way, or if you've asked someone what they are, or if you get that question a lot. This might be kind of going off topic a little bit. This is about being proud of our heritage. I can understand Tagalog, but I cannot speak it. And I think that comes from me learning it at a young age and then slowly growing out of it. But I know for a fact that if I spent a couple solid months in the Philippines, I would be able to pick it back up again, because that's exactly what happened when my parents took me and my brother back to the Philippines for a couple vacations. So my parents would speak Tagalog to each other, and then they would speak English to me and my brother. I think that comes from them really wanting us to assimilate to American culture and to not be, for lack of a better term, held back by speaking Tagalog. I think they just really wanted us to become American. They'd worked so hard to get here, and they wanted to make sure me and my brother assimilated. I really wish they had kept teaching us, preserving that, but hey, you know, if I wanted to continue learning, I could have done that on my own, and I didn't. I am actively excited to take it all in and to relearn. I'm excited about exploring my roots. It's something that I'm constantly working on. It's definitely gonna be a lifelong process. My cousins who were born here, they kind of have the same thing. They don't really speak the language because our parents encouraged us to fully assimilate. I think we could have assimilated while still preserving the language, but it's really interesting how that's not an uncommon story with Filipino American kids. Is 35 being a kid? Among Filipino Americans in my generation. Oh man, language was never a barrier between me and my parents, because they speak English extremely fluently. I could have complex conversations about anything with my parents. Where there was a barrier was culturally. Oh my goodness. Because my poor parents, they grew up one way, and then they come to this new country. They're struggling to figure out what's normal in America. What is a good way to raise my kids in America while preserving the values that I have. Like, I imagine that's the struggle that they dealt with. Where I was coming from, my parents were stuck in the old ways, and this is how kids are in this generation. And in America, I had to convince them that sleepovers are normal, but they didn't grow up having sleepovers. That's weird for them, right? So can you imagine your kid telling you that, and you never experienced that, and you're like, that's a thing? Like, I don't think so. I don't think you should be going over to other people's houses and sleeping in them. That was one of many cultural, generational clashes that we would have. Oh my gosh, high school. High school was such a struggle because that's where you do so much growing so quickly, and it was again a constant battle of, yes, it's normal to go out, hang out with friends, to stay out this late, to do this and to do that, and I swear I wasn't trying to pull the wool over their eyes. I just wanted to do normal American kid stuff. That's where we were coming at from both sides, because I was living a life that they couldn't even. In that sense, I give them mad props for taking themselves out of a place that they know and going to a completely new place and trying to raise a family in it. That's insane. They did a phenomenal job, and I do thank them for it. Through the struggles, through the fights, they instilled really good values in me and my brother, and those are values that are really strong within me today. Family, working hard, and that sense of entrepreneurialism, being loving and being kind, that's something that can transcend culture. If you have those values and they're passed on, that sets a really good foundation for future generations that I am thankful for. My parents are amazing. My parents are my heroes. How long do you have? I could wax on about how incredible my mother is and how hardworking she is, and she really set that example of putting your nose to the grindstone and working for what you want. My dad has been so instrumental in being an amazing example for me and my brother about the importance of friendship and the importance of fostering a relationship with people who mean so much to you, whether that's your actual family or a chosen family. What I am super grateful for with my parents is that they never once were like, oh, you have to go into a medical or professional field. They saw right away that I was a creative person, and they did everything they could to foster that and to encourage that. So they invested in all of the art classes, all of the art tools, everything, and they definitely held fast to the adage that whatever you want to do, make sure you do it well. That's what I did, and they're amazing for that. I love it. I'm proud to be Filipino American, which is why exploring my roots is going to be a lifelong process. I would love to learn the language again. I would love to really dig my heels into the history of it again. Because after a time in my younger years of rejecting it, I think that had to happen for me to fully appreciate it. So I wouldn't change a thing about my struggles with accepting who I am. For a time from 4th grade, when I moved to the southwest suburbs, up until I was a sophomore, junior in high school, I was actively rejecting my heritage. And then it wasn't until high school when one of my really good friends, who was Caucasian, she had to do this report on another country, and she chose the Philippines, which I felt two ways about it. I was like flattered, but I was also a little bit confused. Like, why? I was like, there's so many other cooler countries. That's awful, but that's how I felt at the time. I was being lifted from this pool of rejecting my heritage. So that's what my friend was doing for me. She had this book to do her report, and she was showing me all these amazing pictures of the land and the people and the food, and she was like, oh my god, the food is amazing. Whoa, is this what you grew up eating? And I was like, Yeah. I was having flashbacks to family parties where my aunt, who was a caterer, she would bring over amazing Filipino food. And my grandma, who lived with us for a time, she would make Filipino food all day, every day. So yes, that's another weird dilemma. I would reject being Filipino, but I would also consume Filipino food at home because my grandma would cook it all the time, my Lola. You know what it was? It felt like being two people. It felt like I was one way at home, and then I had to be another way outside of the home. I was just really embarrassed if anybody asked me about what I was, or I was like out here with my Batman mask on. So that's why it would really throw me off when anybody outside of the home would ask me like, oh, are you Filipino? What are you? And I'd be like, whoa, I'm out here with my mask on. What are you doing? Asking me about that stuff. I'm outside of the house, not in the house. So my friend who was really getting into this report, it was fun rediscovering the Filipino culture through her eyes because it made me appreciate it. She had turned on the light bulb of appreciation for my own culture. She was asking me all these questions. I felt really ashamed that I didn't know a lot of them. In a way, I was kind of doing my own personal report on the Philippines. She was like, oh my gosh, next time you have a big family party, can you invite me so I could have all the food? And I was like, yeah, sure, totally. So she came over and had some food, and she was just like loving everything, and it was really cool to see because these were foods that I had spent my childhood keeping a secret from other kids at school. There was this one incident where I brought this dish called pancit for lunch. This kid in my class saw it, and he was like being super rude about it. He was like, oh, what is that? That's so gross. Oh my god, what is that? I just remember just sitting there and like shamefully just eating my food and keeping my head down while this was making fun of my food. And it just kept happening. I think that was the beginning of me rejecting my culture. But that's okay because that rejection, I wouldn't change a thing because it really makes me appreciate my heritage and my culture even more. You know, I appreciate the experiences that I have been through and that have enriched me as a person, and now I have something to contribute to the world. Also, I really love the values that I've learned. That idea that you don't really quite feel Filipino and you don't really quite feel American, that was so prevalent during one of my trips to the Philippines. I was in high school, and it was really crazy going there because everyone kind of looked like me, and I really felt a sense of belonging. But that was until I had to talk to anyone, and it became very apparent that I was American. My mom and I were eating at a restaurant one day. She kind of leans over to me and she's like, hey, those girls behind you, they were kind of commenting on me. I think it was more fascination than being rude. Again, maybe a cultural thing. My mom was like, they can tell you're American. And I was like, what? How do they know? The way you walk, the way you hold yourself, you're very American. Another example of that weird dilemma was this one time we were at a carnival and I was doing bumper cars and my bumper car broke down. A mechanic came over to help me and he was instructing me to do something in Tagalog, but I couldn't quite understand him. It was loud and he was speaking really fast. You know, I probably have the vocabulary of a 4 or 5-year-old, so I really felt out of my element. Like, oh my god, I look like everyone, but I don't quite fit in. I was able to figure it out. That was another incident which told me, wow, okay, so you belong here, but you also don't. Now I think of that approach as not being a negative, but being a positive. It really adds dimension to my personal experience, and I am grateful for that. And I think that's one of the things I love about being Filipino American. I also love the rich history of the Philippines. There is so much more for me to learn. I have a lot of cousins. My mom's side, there's 10 of them. On my dad's side, there were 8. Those are a lot of babies, so can you imagine just how many cousins, bulk of them in the Philippines, Canada, all throughout the United States. Are there a few in China? I I think there's one in Australia. That's what I love about my family specifically, is that we are everywhere. And to me, that makes the world feel like a smaller place. I feel like I can go and visit them and say, hey, I have family here. We have family all around the world now, and that's what I'm gonna take away from it. Gosh, this was a heavy one, guys. I mean, I wasn't crying or anything, but... And hey! Sorry, my dogs, they're getting crazy! That's one thing that I've really admired about the Filipino people. We are resilient and we can adapt. We can bounce back, we can make things happen, we are entrepreneurial, we take initiative, we are innovative, and I am pretty darn proud of that. So I want to hear from you. If you have a story about being not just Filipino American, but Asian American, anything, please share your experience in the comments below. I think people are ready to hear more about us and from us. Let's get out there, let's share our stories. I'm out here sharing mine, and I would really, really love to hear from you. I feel like I've really connected with you, and I hope you got something out of it. So if you did, please give me one of these. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!